I think we're okay. Okay, great. So thank you all for coming today. Hope you can all still hear me. We'll be recording this again for the video, video channel, and we're still working on last week's session that we did because we had a lot of assessments this week. I've seen a lot of lovely kids, and there's going to be a lot of kids rolling into the program next term or next half term. So we're a little bit busy, but don't worry, we're going to get all the stuff online. And in the meantime, I'll try to talk a bit about why we're here and what we're doing. Of course, you can see I'm not alone. Say hi. So Xingni is all the way from Hong Kong. So maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit to the parents.
Hi guys. So my name is Xingni. I'm the founder of a parenting coaching company called Blooming Minds. I've been working with children and their parents, specifically neurodivergent children, for the last couple of years. I find that the interesting crossover between TJ's work and my work is it's a very child-centered approach, but both of us try to bring the parents in. So today, I brought my kids here to meet him, and we thought today would be an interesting crossover between our works and see how bounce some ideas around, see how that comes up.
Yeah, indeed. And I think last week what was asked was two things, and they're on the screen right now. And one big question was, how do we deal with manipulation? And it might be important to define manipulation a little bit, because manipulation, particularly with gifted kids and neurodivergent kids, isn't always conscious, right? So some of these things where they try to get attention, or the most inopportune moments, they start to say, I don't want to listen, I don't want to go out, I don't want to do this, or they get overwhelmed. There's lots of reasons why things don't go the way that they want, and then they start acting out in a way that obviously the rest of the world sometimes don't want.
Right.
And you as a parent can be very frustrated and concerned about. And there is strategies to deal with this, both in preventative and handling them as they happen, and we're going to be just talking about those. So that's the manipulation part. And then there's also a section about executive functioning. So a big question is okay, how do I get my kids to sit still, focus, learn things that they don't want? And we spoke last week a lot about motivation, like the dark playgrounds, particularly like some convergence stuff, which is really good. But obviously there's a little bit more to that. In some cases, either because of twice exceptionalism, so we have kids that both have ADHD and are gifted, but we also see a lot of challenges with executive functioning with ASD and twice exceptionalism. And then there is just the kids that unfortunately, because of a long, hard experience in school, have built up very poor mental cognition skills and executive function skills as a result. And that basically is one of those things that at certain points schools don't really deal with.
No, and it's kind of like what I think about executive functions, like skills where you can teach kids. And a lot of times, because people my generation were not taught these skills, we're not even aware that exists. So sometimes we see a behavior, we tell the children, we say you're lazy, but actually maybe they're not lazy. They just don't have any transition and initiation skills. So instead, if we post them in this part of executive function skills, then we don't have to put a negative definition on the child to say you are a lazy child, right? So we can turn it into something that we can help them, skills we can help them develop.
Yeah, I mean, I said last week, I said they're not lazy, they're scared. Right. So it's a fair response. It's a really important thing. And I had a really lovely assessment with a really lovely girl today. A levels, obviously very bright, like a little ball of energy. That's amazing. And she says oh, I'm just lazy. And then she says oh, I'm not doing well. And then this is a girl that actually had 12 A stars on her IGCSE exams. So her definition of like how hard it is for her to deal with this stuff is making her like paint her entire school situation as like, I'm not doing well.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame, really, because like this is obviously a girl that can do a lot. Like Rose is really smart. Was working with a game in a way that like it was really out of the box kind of thinking, really, which is. And then if you ask us, oh yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm being a bit weird, like so apologetic. It's really a wasted opportunity, I think, for her, like that losing that confidence. So yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about. Like I want to focus a lot on the positive discipline in this, because I'm a very big proponent, and because my mom beat it into me with a stick. No, not really, but like for those that will have they've had the blessing of meeting my mom. She's really firm on this. And positive discipline is a very unorthodox in a way. It shouldn't be, but for a lot of people, it's sort of mind-blowing how different it is from approaching kids that throw manipulation tantrums in a sense. And yeah, like for those that don't know, positive discipline is from the US. It's been around for like a good 2 decades. It hasn't really got the momentum it needs. Like I don't think in Hong Kong there's a lot of.
No, we don't hear a lot about that.
Yeah. So I always joke to my parents. It's like, look, it's positivity for the kids. It's discipline for the parents. Very important, right? So let's start. What do we want to start with? Do we want to start with the executive functioning, or do you want to prefer to start with the manipulation part?
I think let's tackle manipulation first.
Yeah. Okay. So one good way to frame this, I think, and it's like this is one of the blessings of I think working with kids that are special education needs, not just gifted, but twice exceptional kids. They run into problems with this so extreme that it becomes really obvious that we need to help them with it.
Right.
And that's actually a good thing because it makes us as educators go, oh, right, I can't just do the same thing and I can't blame the child for it anymore. Right. So like, how do you see this? Like, how do you work with executive?
Manipulation or is it?
Sorry, manipulation. Yeah, sorry.
Right. So the one thing that I talk to parents that I always tell them, because people always come and they say, my kids is behaving this way, my kids is behaving that way. Is there something wrong, or is there a problem? Are they just bad? We always say there's no bad children. There are bad behaviors, but behind the behavior, there is a child that wants your help and your attention, that's needing support, but they don't know how to express that. And the way that I work with parents or educators is to find out what is going on behind the behavior we see. Actually, me and TJ were just talking about it. One of my children would choose to actually today he said, oh, mommy, I can't do my Chinese. I'm so lazy. So he laid there for 20 minutes. And I said, and his siblings were just waiting on the side. And then in the end, I said, okay, it seems like you're really not feeling well. So how about your sibling can go play on the iPad for a little bit? And then we'll just wait for you to get better before we all go out. And all of a sudden, he just jumped up. He said, I'm feeling much better. If this was me a couple of years ago, before knowing that in that moment, I need to stay calm to handle his manipulation, I would have just probably blown out. I'm like, I can see right through you, you're 6 years old. How can you do this to me? So I think one of the biggest thing is first to see why they don't want to do it. He didn't want to do it probably because he felt like, oh, we're kind of on a school break. Why do I need to do this? I don't feel like doing it. So he wants to delay that. And I recognize that. And instead of giving in to that kind of, when he's pulling the attention, I feel that as parents, we need to stay calm because you can really only parent when you're calm. The moment you lose your cool, you're no longer parenting. You are in a power struggle that is just showing who's the bigger person, and you would win because you're bigger in size. But one day your child will grow taller, bigger, stronger than you want them.
Yeah, Yeah, I think what is really important for parents in this, right? So let me just bring the where is it, the manipulation part over here. Right. So the first question you should ask as a parent is like, okay, like who's in control?
Mhm.
Right? Because like you should have more experience than the child itself. And then the second part is like what is the framing, the empathy you can have for their situation. Because manipulation normally means that they're doing something to achieve something else.
Right.
And what we tend to do is focus too much on the manipulation bit. And then we do not deal with the something else.
Right.
And most of the something else is actually something that's happened way before. Now, the first thing, like as you said, we need to learn how to calm down. And I want to actually take a little model that I think is kind of interesting. So if you look at a situation with a kid where basically we have a baseline, everything is going fine, the world is happening, we're okay, and all of a sudden something happens. So like a bad situation in a family situation in manipulation tends to be like a little crisis, something that triggers it. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to leave, whatever that is. And all of a sudden we get an escalation. So when this escalation happens, we drop down and there is a bottom. There's a situation where it spirals a bit out of control. And we reach a bottom. This is normally when things escalate to the point where they get even worse, shouting, dragging, unfortunately, worse things as well.
Yeah.
And then normally after that, there's like a bit of going back up. So there, you basically situation normalizes. Now, this is where things get a bit interesting. Either the situation ends up on the same line, and that means we've learned nothing, right? So we're still doing the same thing. Or behavior starts happening that is worse. So we have worse behavior below baseline. And this happens a lot when we deal with PTSD. And this is not always just for the kids. Like, let's say if you started accidentally shouting at them and got really, really angry. This happens. We're just humans. They get like really, really sad. And then I'm trying to, Margaret, something, she's talking about reparations, right? Like one of the things that we're very bad at as adults is we don't repair with our kids. So a lot of the kids sort of get a worse baseline, right? And so they act even worse. Now, the other option is that we actually learn from this. So we have a positive, we have a negative, we have a zero, right? So ideally, you want to be here. But funny enough, in order for us to get there, what we need to do is we need to actually get better at three things. We have to have a longer fuse. So this is a fuse, like towards a big bomb, right? It's like a bomb. There we go. And it's ready to blow, right? And it will blow. And the longer your fuse is, the more you can take. Right. So this is obviously a state of being, frustrated. It's emotional state. Like this is build up of emotion. So you're thinking your logic, but you're building up emotion. Now, if you're really good, you can learn how to cut the fuse and release. Right. That'll be awesome. And then the next step, or it's just getting better at it, so just practicing, get a better thing. The thing down is also, this is normally a state of anger or fight or flight or deep fear, like anything there. And basically, again, this is practice, right? This bit though is a very logical bit. This is plan and reflect as a parent. So you have to plan and reflect. So do you have some tips on how to get a longer fuse when you work with this?
Let me just quickly add in two things before they jump out of my head. The first thing is that there's actually a study and a rule called 90 seconds rule. So when you are angry, the chemicals in your body, the chemical reactions in your body actually only keep you really, really, really angry for 90 seconds. After that, the chemicals are no longer working. So a lot of times when we are angry, if you think about it, if you reflect, either with our children or with our partners or with other people, it's you telling yourself a story, kind of creating a story, trying to justify why you feel so bad. So when you feel like your child is working up, if you can sit through the first 90 seconds, then you're actually able to deal with it in a much, much calmer and logical way. And the second thing I want to add on to what TJ was just saying is that why does calming down in the moment not work is because when you are already so stressed out and you're so frustrated, the logical part of your brain is shut down. You cannot. It's like when you're arguing with somebody and they tell you, just relax, just relax. You will never be able to relax in that moment because it's your emotional brain that's in charge in the moment. You will not be able to use your logic brain. So how do we get to the calm state? You actually have to practice when you are actually calm before the accident. Like you imagine, you identify what triggers you, like what's the most common trigger from your child's behavior to you. And you practice, like, okay, when my child says this thing, it makes me feel really bad. Like, give you a very common example. When a child feels really hurt or angry and they don't know what to say, they say, I hate you, you're the worst mommy or daddy in the world. And a lot of times we get so angry, right? We immediately say, how dare you say that to me? I do all this for you. You know, I spent all this, I sacrificed so much, like blah, 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 and it goes out of control, right? So we actually, before any of that happens, normally you just practice. Okay, next time my child says they hate me, I'm going to say, I can see you're very upset. I'm so sorry you're feeling that way, but I will not let you talk to me in a disrespectful and hurtful way. So I'm just going to give you a little space and we can come back and revisit this conversation when you feel better. So you practice that 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. And the next time when your child is actually really emotional, say that to you, hopefully you will be able to then use this response. So you really just need to practice it. It's like a muscle memory, but this is a brain muscle memory.
Yeah. And I think what is important is that it's not always anger, right? So when kids sometimes say, I don't want to go, or I'm scared, and some of them don't even become like angry, right? So like there's a very interesting, like the model for Passend basically says, okay, we have kids that are performing well, and this is performance. And then on the other side, we have social awareness, and that can go both ways, right? So we have over adjusting, under adjusting. So over adjusting is when the kids basically sort of like, okay, I'll do what you want, never standing up for themselves, trying to hide from things by like trying to like this is traditionally seen as introverted, but basically they're over adjusting, they're losing themselves. And the other side is the ones that are like under adjusted. So they say, no, I don't want to do this, I'm upset. And they're the ones that we tend to see. Right. But technically the kids that sort of like, oh, I don't want to go to school, I'm so sad. And then what happens is like we panic, right? We feel concerned. Right. So it's still an emotion. So the parents like, oh yeah, I don't want them to feel so sad and frustrated. So what happens is they go, the parents go, oh, come, like, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the interesting things that is just as difficult for parents. It's very frustrating because you need to go to school, right? Like we've had kids that didn't want to dress up for school, so they still wearing their pajamas when they're going to school, for example. And it's like you don't want to see the kids in distress. You don't want to see them sad. You feel concerned. You start to help them. But what is happening is like you're basically feeding them dopamine, because you're like, they don't have to do anything. They can just stand there, be sad, and all of a sudden, here is this big adult that is the most important person in my world, my mom and my dad, and he's now going to give me hugs and careful consideration and all that kind of stuff. And it's like great, by doing nothing, which is the least amount of energy you could do, I'm getting more love and care than I even get when I'm doing something normally. Right. So this is actually the crux of all of this stuff when it comes down to it. In my experience, almost all the manipulation that I see comes from a search for attention. Like they're looking for attention, they're looking for the dopamine of getting some action. Yeah, correct. And what is really interesting is that like being addicted to negative reactions is also the other side. So there's kids on the other side of this particular, that was not the one that I wanted to do, but there you go. On the other side of this particular spectrum, they basically once they get into these fights because that's one way to get some attention. Right, so with gifted kids, a lot of them we have the kids in the middle, right? So the kids in the middle, they are basically not over-adjusting, not under-adjusting. They know how to stand up for themselves. They're performing really well as a result. And we call these autonomous successful kids. So that for the ones that have not heard my slogan, it's happy, autonomous, successful. Why? Because that's a NIARD model. That's literally the pinnacle where you want to have a given kid to be. And they've done a lot of research to say, okay, how do we get kids there? Now, kids either sit a little bit on the other side, so the under-adjusted side, which we call kids going underground. Basically, underground is actually one step further. That's when things get problematic. But with the one in the middle, which is called adjusted successful. And it's very nasty because they look like they're being successful. They're often A-star students here, but they are basically doing enough for themselves, not because they want to. And most of these could do more, right? They could actually perform much better, but like everybody thinks they're okay. Some of them start to realize, well, if I just do a little bit more, I will get more work. And actually, if I act a little bit sad and sick, I'm going to get all this care. So what happens is a lot of these girls, often girls, unfortunately, this is being an agreeable is more common with girls than it is with boys. But it can happen with boys as well.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So are these kids that lack intrinsic motivation?
Yes. Yeah, so this is basically they're doing everything for an extrinsic motivator. I'm trying to please my mom. I'm trying to get good grades for somebody else. But why I have to go to university? Why do you have to go to university? I think because my mom and dad want that too.
Right.
And also, this is again, unfortunately, wanting your kids in university is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a good thing. But why do we want the kids in there? The kids will understand. It's they don't understand exactly what being in a university means yet. They never do. And what is a job? Most Asians have never had it. Asian kids never had a job, which is a real pet peeve of mine. I really say that if you can get your kids a job as early as possible, like part-time or whatever, it helps them with all of this stuff. And it gives them a little bit of money. But basically, the kids that we find manipulating and being sad, like C+ students, they are giving up the ability to get good grades or participation in class for the attention they can get from their mom and dad. And this starts very early. I've got kids like 5 years old, that basically start showing this particular behavior. What is interesting, it's actually more common with the middle child. So it's like kind of a middle child symptom. Because there's a lot of dynamics between men and siblings get bored, and it's almost as if you see like this sort of all the 6 stages of grief go on with the first child. It's like, I used to be the only person that got your attention, and now I'm getting nothing. And then the second child gets born. It's like they're like, oh man. And then the third child gets born. The first one thinks, oh, it's not my fault. It's just a new kid. It's fine. But the middle kid goes, I used to be the center of it. And it's just so the only solution is having 12 kids like Elon Musk. But unfortunately, that's not the solution. So what can we do, right? So what is the next step? Because what we need to think about is what is really that trigger, and it's attention most of the time. And what I wanted to know from you is do you see that that's actually also often the case with a lot of quite exceptional kids, whether it's the attention that they're looking for?
I think a lot of times in when we say look behind the behavior of children, most of the time what they're looking for is attention. Because even if you're talking about kids looking for more challenge, it's kind of like academic attention that they're looking for. Because when they're in a regular classroom and they feel bored and unchallenged, because they don't feel like they're being seen by the teacher, and that's when they start act up. Right? You have teachers say, "Oh, this child is always getting into trouble with classmates who randomly hit somebody or refuse to do the work or doodle on an assignment," and that's actually because it's similar but a little bit different. But they are looking for the attention of the teacher, that basically saying, "Look at me, I'm not doing the assignment you're giving," because they don't even understand why. But as adults and educators, then we can see it's because they need something more, right? In any family situation, I think, like you mentioned, especially with the middle child, is the older child. If the older child especially is gifted, the older child is like the golden child. they're always good at everything because they are a few years older. And you will have a the youngest child is, again, the most precious one is the little baby. So what does the middle one get? The middle one is never as good as the old one, not because they are not as talented, but because they're younger and they're not there yet. And they also don't get the baby the youngest get. So this makes a lot of sense.
Yes. So funny enough, the one where the attention for the teacher is often very important is with these kids. So the ones that are under-adjusted socially, we call them challenging creative. So these are called the challenging creatives. So these are often the ones that when you get like an assignment and they answer it in a funny way that like isn't wrong, but is kind of like not what people are asking for. And these are cries for attention, right? So they're basically like, okay, how far can I push it? And normally what has happened is like these kids were like very enthusiastic. Maybe a lot of the kids that are currently being a bit manipulative with us as parents were quite nice and really like getting a lot of positive attention before. Like there's a deficit between the attention they used to get and now that actually makes them go, hey, I'm going to work even harder for that particular thing. So one question that I wrote down when I was preparing for this. So one question you need to ask yourself as a parent is like, if you know it is manipulation, who is responsible? As a parent, and if like in case like if we don't fix the situation.
That's a hard question. Because when you say when I see that question, it's kind of the initial reaction is when you say who's responsible, it's almost like who created the situation. Then you feel like there's a little blame coming up. I'd rather like to think it's because your child is gifted and special. We need to come up with better ways to support them. So it's not that you've done something wrong or you're not doing enough. It's rather that it's us parents' job, whether it is in everyday parenting or advocating for your children in school or communicating with the teacher to let them know exactly what your children is needing or what you're seeing that they're not getting. It is our job, but it's not because we're not doing well enough, but rather we can do more.
Yeah, so maybe the best way to change it, like this fault is not what we're talking about. Right? Because there's a difference. Right? Like fault implies that like I can't do anything about it anymore. And responsibility is actually very progressive, like, okay, this is something I can take and can do something. And I think the best way that I help reframe, and I've seen Willeke and my mom do this a lot with parents that really struggle with this. And I said, okay, so like how do you want your kid to be when they're 23 years old? Right? Because like they're going to be their own individual person. They're not like a blank slate that just like takes everything you say. They're really like a plant, right? Like you can't stream a plant to grow. You have to get the right soil, you have to get the right nutrients, and then you have to just be patient. And if some weeds come in the way you take them out. If but as a sense, you're still responsible to feed that planet. And
I love you saying that because I was just mentioning my company is called Blooming Mind. It came from an English poem. It says your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can sow flowers or weeds. And to me, us parents are the ones that's putting the thoughts into our children's mind. And you can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. Exactly. So I think that answers
that's for sure. Now, one thing that I have to say, and this is actually a little bit of a harsh truth, unfortunately, to a lot of parents. And I've been told this myself, right? So and one of the ironies of being an educator is that it's often a lot easier to work with other kids' children than it is to work with your own.
Right.
And that's because and that's simply because the state of emotion that comes with it is harder to control because you cannot be as objective. Right. So again, like what we're asking you guys to do in terms of advice that we're trying to give you, it's almost unfair that sometimes it goes, hey, like are they doing it themselves with their kids? And actually, like the only way to make that work is actually get a little bit of a coach yourself.
Yeah.
Ideally, somebody that can help you say, are you sure? Like, are you really practicing what you preach? And say, oh man, yeah, there it is. And then it becomes practice and it becomes easier. Like, and then it's like the modeling behavior. Like, I think a lot of kids that are very scared, I find often have parents that have gone through that fear as well and have been trying to protect their kids from it. And it's very admirable, but unfortunately, it actually has the opposite effect of what you really want. Right. So if you're overprotective in those situations, sometimes like I'll give a very good example of like when we had some of the kids coming in and they didn't want to go into the center. And what was very interesting is like we as educators, we sometimes see them come in with mommy, daddy, or with grandma, or like different people drop them off. And the kid would behave differently depending on who would drop them off.
Right.
If dad would drop him off, it's just come by, like, you know, they wouldn't kick him out of the car and make sure he rolled. That's not how far it went. But dad would just like, I'm off, let's it, like very quick. And because of that, it was like a very brisk kind of thing. There's no moment for the child to sort of get into that fear state, and basically no problem. Like they'd walk in class and they'd be happy. And when mommy would do it, sometimes it would be like a whole song and dance and stuff. And so one thing with that is like you can actually use, if you have other siblings, you can use the other siblings as a way to model the behavior that you want. And that is really the iPad story. Because basically what happened there is like, oh, I'm trying to throw attention, and here's my older brother getting a reward for it. I'm not standing for it. I'm changing my behavior. And actually, that is the kind of the core tenet of what positive discipline is. So positive discipline is about the concept of not giving any kind of attention and reward, both negative or positive, towards bad behavior. Now, there is an exception if you do something that harms people. You have to stop that. But like then generally speaking, like what you need to do then is take a step back and pick your fights on smaller things. Right. So you need to start small, start at home, practice it at home, be firm at home. Right. It's like they don't want to clean up. Fine. Like I'm not giving you the next step until you clean up.
Right.
And I'm not going to shout at you. I'm not going to get angry at you.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, the next step is just not going to happen. And I've seen this with some kids where like they want to grab something and say, no, that's my game or that's my thing. You're not allowed to have this until you ask. And until I say yes, you cannot have it. And
I think it just comes naturally as a consequence of the behavior. Like it doesn't have to be a punishment. It's just that you're explaining there's a consequence to your actions. And if this is your choice will lead to this consequence. And a lot of times, in the end, they kind of see that they can't push you around anymore, and they will follow they make a choice, and they will, get the consequence.
Yeah, and this is difficult. Like, and I'm also wary that there's sometimes mommies and daddies where like the dads are not around because they're working in different, like sometimes even completely different countries. Like in China, this is a very big thing, I think. So like what you need to do is you really need to ask for help. Because you need that fortitude, and you logically can think about I did the right thing, but then when the situation happens and you went through all that emotion and you're basically trying to build up, you're second guessing yourself like constantly in this stage. Like, am I doing the right thing? And then just somebody say, yeah, that was good, well done. It's like, okay, great, because you are also a human being. This is not a fun situation to sit in at all. Therefore, your brain is going to go, I don't want to do this because I don't feel terrible when this happens.
Let me bring that up because I actually have a very close friend who's a really great educator. She's the principal of a really great school. And the other day she sent me a text and she was very, very upset. She said, I feel like I'm a great educator, but I'm a failure as a mother. So I called her and I said, why would you say that about yourself? And she told me, today with my child, this happened. I said, you know what? As an educator, you advise other parents of things like this all the time. But when it comes to yourself, you're second guessing yourself. I said, no, You knew what needs to be done. You did the right thing, even though your child reacted differently in the moment from what you were expecting. That could be hurtful right now. In the long term, you did the right thing, and you know you did because you're a great educator, right? So the second guessing works on all of us.
Yeah, correct. So I want to I call it the parent problem, and I called it that a little bit tongue in cheek because like when you speak to a lot of teachers, they will say things like, "Oh, it's always the parents that is the problem," and it's not really fair because I don't think that's always the case. But we are like as parents, we are about 40% of anything that they're doing, maybe even more, like up to like
That's very generous.
yeah, and essentially, the thing that so the reframe is it's the problem that you guys are having is that initially most parents are oblivious, so they have no clue what is going on, and things seem to be fine. Like particularly when babies are babies, it's like like the mechanical stuff is there, but none of the like emotional stuff seems to be that big a problem yet. Like like they're not swearing because they can't speak, right? So, but what is happening is like a lot of parents that I start working with, they're worried. Like, so they realize something is off and they don't know what to do. And then there's a lot of FOMO around them and stuff like that. Like other people, they go, yeah, my kids are great. They're never a problem. And beware the people that say that their kids are not a problem, to be honest, because I just don't, I've never met anybody where that is true. Right, like that we're humans. Everybody goes through emotions and difficulties, so that's it. So the next step is basically researching, like what is, and this is where actually I think a lot of parents sort of fall short of themselves. Like it's when I ask them, it's like, okay, you've got gifts for kids. How much have you read on them? They'll say, not much actually. Like the fact that we have like over 30 people in this room here is actually really, really cool. Is it over 30? Yeah, there you go. Well, 21. So like, you're researching, you're trying to figure out what you can do. And you don't have to agree with everything that I say, like for sure, I have thoughts on how I think I can help kids, and you have your own, they're your children, right? You know them better than I do. So like don't let that maybe be a gospel in a sense. But basically, once you research and you come to a conclusion on what you want to do, and you find the kind of people around you that you want help from, the next step is practicing, and that's another thing. Like that's like, okay, I model the behavior I want. I pick my fights at home over small things. Make the small thing, like worry about the small things. The big things take care of themselves. It's kind of the opposite of what the normal saying is supposed to be. But when it comes to modeling behavior, actually, like anytime you let your kids get away with a behavior that breaks one of your values, right? You're basically making that value no longer important. And then naturally, the consequences of that become worse and worse and worse. So you need to be actually a little bit disciplined, like very early on. And then you implement it when it happens. And once you get really comfortable in that and everything goes well, you'll slide nice and comfortably back into oblivious. Right? And that's why I'm saying it's like once when everybody says, "Oh, my kids are great, there's no problems," it's like, well, that's just today, and there's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
So this cycle is not never ending. Okay, I want to push on one other thing a little bit that is very interesting, particularly around like manipulation, because not all manipulation is conscious. Right. So one model that we look into that is very interesting is the monkey, human, and computer brain. So this is where we are. So like the cry for attention is often very conscious, but sometimes it pushes into an addiction. Right. And the monkey brain, human brain, computer brain concept is sort of like a split between the emotional side of our brain, which is the primitive brain. It is a chemical factory. It's not very logical at all. It's very fast. Like it's extremely fast in making decisions. It's great for if you want to run away from a burning building, right? But it's not very good at like coming up with good plans.
Right.
The human brain is logical. It's very well thought out. It's very intelligent. It can think. It's very slow. it's very slow, which means like if you're in a dangerous situation, we know this, people sometimes think like, oh yeah, I can solve myself the way out of it. And then like maybe a flood happens and they're in the room, it's like, oh, it's a little bit of water, I don't have to do anything. And like 20 minutes later, the water's up to here and the human brain kills you, right? So whereas people that are a bit more in monkey mode are like, water, I'm out, and they've saved themselves. Now, where the computer brain comes in, which is really, it's like I say, the computer is completely thoughtless, and it's completely programmable. And it's like when you brush your teeth, right? So if once you learn how to brush your teeth, you don't think about it anymore. It's quite a complex thing. There's a lot of stuff involved. People like driving a car, a very good example. But we do the same with emotional responses. So the monkey brain and the human brain can program our computer. So once they learn, I get attention from mommy or daddy by doing this. The first time they do it, like they're aware. The second time, they might still be aware. The third time, it's a computer program and it's just running it automatically. And this is why taking care of the small thing is so important, because they're young. The younger they are, the more important this is. Like the brain develops the most from 1 to 6 years old. So anything that you can do to help them program their brain, the logical computer side of things over helps with that, right? So because what is really interesting, it's like it's an addiction rabbit hole, I call this. So the rabbit hole is, so the addiction to punishment, how does this work, right? Well, first it's attention. I have no attention, so punishment is better than none. I get some stimulation, right? And then the attention actually becomes comfort. Like even though it hurts, you know. And then the thing is, like normally, and there's another version of it's consoling, like being consoled and stuff like that. Often after you get angry with them, like this happens a lot. It's like we get angry, you just shout, and after sorry, hug, and then the console. So it's like, oh, this is still a bit nice. Like some parents was like feel so guilty they'll take their kids out for ice cream afterwards. So like this actually becomes a nasty cycle.
I think the comfort bit is huge, because a lot of the attention and the comfort, a lot of time after the children do something and you ask them, you say, hey, why did you do that? Like you talk it through with them step by step, and they actually know it doesn't make any sense, and they can't even make sense of what they did, and they literally just tell you, they look at you and they say, I don't know, and you say, how did that make sense? They say, I don't know, you know. So they know it doesn't make sense. So it is an addiction. They literally just, because it brings the attention, and the moment you give that anger kind of, or the frustration, you release on them, you can see like they're holding on, and you almost can see like they got a shower of attention, and then they let it go, and then they start to calm down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So and when we talk about addiction, right, like we know that the best way to deal with addiction is like just taking away the actual thing completely, right? So when people are alcoholic, we say don't drink any alcohol. Right. So and same computer games, like if addicted to computer games, take away computer games. But here we tend to sometimes forget that we need to do the same thing. And this is where you have to be the adult. It's like, okay, it's going to be hard. Like I'll be very honest. Like dealing with that is going to feel frustrating, and it's going to feel like, okay, I'm making some progress, and then the kids will fall back, and then there's progress again. And I find often when the progress is there, it's like, oh, I feel like a kind of relief. I'll let them have a little bit more of it, and it just seeps back in. You need to almost hold your leg stiff for 3 to 6 months at least. Yeah, and that's hard, right? So keep that in mind. That's where we are, right? So okay, so that's like a lot of manipulation. Honestly, I think the executive functioning is something that we don't have a lot of time left, but I did promise you guys I'm going to teach you something very specific about executive functioning. So executive functioning, particularly in the way we give the kids, that we work with them, is we're trying a few things. One is we're trying to get them into flow state, right? So we want them into flow. And that in order to do that, we need to basically help them create group goals. So when we start with this, sorry, let's go up a little bit. Oh, not much space left. Here we go. One. The first thing we do is SMART goals. So SMART is an acronym, which is specific, measurable, and then action-oriented. So a lot of action-oriented. So a lot of times, I'll explain this one at a time in a bit. Realistic and time-bound. So time-bound, like very important. So specific is about like if I give somebody a task, it needs to be clear what you want to do. And we use this a lot in management, and most of you have probably seen this. The measurable bit is often very hard for people to understand. So measurable isn't only like, okay, how much money or whatever. It's also, is there something physical that has happened? Yes or no, right? And particularly when I deal with kids that have ADD or ADHD, the measurable part is very hard for them, because it's for them very hard to figure out like how important certain things are, and therefore a lot of them fall in this particular step. Action-oriented is actually I think in the older models there was a different word. Maybe have you ever heard this before? SMART itself?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So action-oriented, when we give a goal, is about like who is doing it. So what actions are you taking to get this done? So if it's like, I'll give an example in a second so we know what we're doing. Realistic is like, is it possible to do this? Right? And then time-bound, a lot of people forget this, like when is it due? Now, a good example of this is what, let's say if I take clean up. So I have a child and I go, clean up. Clean up what? Like, what are we doing? Right? So how would we make that more specific? Well, clean up your room. Right. Yeah. So that is a little bit better. Still not like clean up your room. You know, and then it's like, okay, we start measurable, not really.
So about the specific, I just want to jump in with a little story. So it's very easy for parents to say, like you said, clean up. And then I did that the other day. I said, clean up. And then 10 minutes later, I walked in. Everything else was done. And the Legos was laying around. So I got really upset. I said, guys, I told you guys to clean up. And they said, we did. I said, what do you call this? And they said, but we're going to have dinner and we're going to do homework and then we're still going to play it. So there is, again, it goes to the intention behind the behavior.
Yeah.
I didn't specifically say, put everything away. So if you want your children to do something, you have to, in a specific way, you have to tell them what way you want it.
Yeah, and then particularly with kids, like sometimes that idea of what you know, is clean or not, it's like you have to be more specific, like, okay, I want you to dust everything. Or I want you to get everything that is on the floor that isn't in its normal place, put it in its normal place. So the more specific you can get, the better it is.
Right.
But that also normally makes things more measurable. So if you could say dust the shelves, it's like, well, that's also subjective. Yeah, I took the dust to it. But like, okay, I don't want to see any dust left on the shelf, is how you make it measurable. Like, I don't want to see any things on the floor, right? Like well, these kind of things are what makes things interesting. Then it's like, okay, he said, guys, one of you needs to clean up the room. And then there's two of them playing and you come back and nobody did it. It's like, well, actually, you didn't tell them who. So by you dusting and by you taking the stuff off, like you get a little bit better. And then the question realistically is just to check, like, okay, can you make it? Like, is it doable?
Yes.
It's like, I want to do, I don't know, like, I want like 0.1% of bacterial, like residue left. It's like, okay, that's maybe a little bit unfair for a 5-year-old. And then the time bound is like very, like, when does it need to be done? Like tonight, before dinner, or after. So this is an important step. Like, the kids struggle with this a lot, and we challenge them on their projects all the time on it. Sorry, good question? The sound from your end seems a little bit hard to hear. Could you type it in chat? That would be maybe a little bit better. Let's see if because for some reason your sound is very choppy. Okay. There we go. So yeah, I'm whoever that was just now, because I can't also see who was asking the question just now. Hello. Either that or somebody's accidentally clicking buttons. That could also be a thing, of course. Yeah, there we go. Let's see what is it. No, I don't see anything there. So, okay, we'll cut that out in post. Okay, so basically we have this SMART goal. How do we help them on the next step? And what we do is what we call a bubble map. So a bubble map is actually very simple. I take my goal, right? And it's all now clearly defined. Like it's a really nice, clear goal. And then you challenge the person. Can you do it right now? That's it. That's a simple question. So if, let's say, you pretend to be your child, in this situation where you are right now, and I would have asked you, okay, I want you to clean up your room by having no dust on the shelves, taking all your rubbish off the, like all the rubbish and all the laundry out, and I want you to do that tonight, or something like that. So you're here right now. Can you do that?
No.
No. Okay. What's missing?
The room.
The room is missing. So we can only do this when we are at the room.
Right.
Okay. Now, assuming that we get to the room, what else needs to happen? Like if you need to dust it out.
Have the tools.
Okay. We need the tools, right? Okay. What else do we need?
I need to have like physical needs met, like not hungry. Not
Okay.
thirsty.
So yeah, needs met. Okay. So we need to eat and all that kind of stuff, right? We need the room. We need the tools. We need to do it. We need to clean.
Right.
Right. What else?
And you don't want to do it?
Well, I mean, there's basically like maybe a bit of motivation, sure. Motivation. If you're here,
Right.
you might need to fly into the room, right? So you
Right.
need to travel to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Are like if I asked you if you were your youngest child,
Yeah.
is she capable of doing it?
No, not realistic.
Yeah, but could she learn? So you would need to teach her, right?
Right.
Yeah. So need to learn
The skills.
the skill, right? Okay. Now we have like a few things here, and we basically draw like circles around them. That's why we call them bubbles, right? And what happens now is like, okay, well, the cleaning itself is obviously the last thing that happens, right? And in order for you to be able to clean, you need to learn the skills,
Right.
right? Okay. In order to learn the skills, you need the tools,
Yeah.
right? And I would say, in order to do that, you need to have motivation to do anything with it. Like then we basically need to, before we get the motivation, we actually need to get to the room. That means we need to travel right now, right? Now, obviously, like, could you travel to Hong Kong right now if there would be nothing else going on?
I guess.
Yeah. So if you were, let's say, in the cafe
Okay.
and you're going home in 10 minutes,
Okay.
and then you want this to happen, you have a conversation with your child.
Yeah.
Like, because right now you're here in Malaysia, but like,
Yeah.
but it's a bit, but
Yeah.
let's say if you're, okay, well, we need to travel there. It's like, okay, well, we need to get to the room.
Right.
Then I need to talk to you about why this is important. Then I need to go get the tools.
Right.
Right. Then I need to help her a little bit, like,
Right.
like how to do this. Then you go and actually clean it, and then you achieve your goal.
Right.
Right. So this is a critical path.
Right.
Basically.
I have a question
Sure.
for you about this. How big does the problem or task need to be for us to create this? Because it's also a little bit unrealistic for us to create a map like this for everything. We
Yeah.
want the child to do.
That's fair, but it really depends. Like if it's I would do it with things that you feel are recurring problems that are causing underlying issues.
Kind of tension.
Yeah. So like this is a really small job.
Right.
But technically, if you were to apply this to a child doing it for the first time, it's not unreasonable to do this. Like just now when I said do it for your like your 8-year-old, it's like, nah, I don't need to do this.
Right.
But do it for your 3-year-old.
Right.
It's actually quite a reasonable thing to do.
Right.
But how many of us actually go through this particular kind of bubble map with our kids
Right.
when it comes down to it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so obviously you need to make your own decision on what happens here. But when we work with the kids, you get like task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? And then what you do is you list those tasks in that order, and then you agree on the time limit that you need to do. So you just go, okay, if travel is time 1, like that needs to take a certain amount of time. So 1 is travel. So like how much time? Like is that like if we're in the cafe, that's like 20 minutes or like whatever that is, right? And then task number 2, getting to the room is like 1 minute. Okay, let's go up. You know, and then it's like motivation. So that's a speech. So the next one is like, okay, that's like, I don't know, 2 minutes, right? Like, why is it important to clean your rooms? Like, let's see, oh, you see, there's ants on leave there, whatever. Like, you do want ants? No, I don't. Right. So, and then you keep going, like getting the tools is like 2 minutes. And what you're doing is like, you're creating a little like positive flow kind of thing. This is actually what executive functioning is about. Particularly with ADHD, the smaller you can make these tasks, the better it is. Right. So that is like, okay, this one is done, this one is done, this one is done, this one is done.
It's like hitting little milestones.
Correct.
Right.
And it allows you like sometimes like again we talk about rewards, right, for kids.
Right.
So if you say the way positive discipline we get continuous positive behavior is by reinforcing the behavior, not the outcome,
right,
then you're creating a situation here where everything that we do, you can say, oh, I really like that you just went with me from the cafe without kicking a fuss. It's so nice. And it's nice that like that you followed me to the room straight away. It's like it's great that you were so enthusiastic trying to find ants on it. Like there's lots of stuff and you can say that was great behavior. So you'll get for something simple, cleaning up your room with a little kid, you'll get 7, 8 opportunities to do positive reinforcement on a behavior rather than on the outcome. Whereas most of the time, what we do with most kids, go clean your room,
yes,
and then half an hour later you come back, and either they've done it or they haven't done it, and then blow up, or we are happy because of it.
yes.
And what we've done is we created the exact opposite we wanted:
Right.
closed mindset behavior. Okay, so I think this is a nice moment to add, like, close all this. Are there any questions? We'll do like 5 minutes of questions for anybody that would love to ask us anything about this. Please put something in the chat. I'll give you guys like a small minute to come back to me on that. But if we can try for you guys to use your again. I think we'll have to work with the chat this time around. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the sound specifically.
What I really like about the bubble map is also that it lists out the steps. So for a lot of my clients, give the neurodivergent children that once they have something visual, it makes a lot more sense in their head of why they need to do this and how do I kind of get there.
Yeah.
I like that. It brings logic into the action for them instead of just I have to do this because mom said so. I have to go do this because dad said. Otherwise, there's consequences.
Yeah.
It helps them to make sense of things.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the other thing that is important in this is like sometimes you'll find that they're still like struggling a little bit to come up with the idea. So this is where the coaching comes in.
Right.
Like we do this with our kids, like in the class all the time. Like any project, like okay, smart goal, bottle map, smart goal, bottle map. And that's basically one way that we can we practice this and like figuring out like how to do the smart goal versus hard. I still hear a few people asking questions. I'm not sure, like I don't see anything in the everybody can send messages, so that's all good. This can be dismissed. Here we go. Okay. So how do we get a child to stick to promises with integrity? For example, when a child keeps watching nonsense videos like Italian brain rot, Pick the Body, Poppy Playtime, Mr. Beat, Spunky Horrible, that's quite a lot of them. Like we get an agreement on taking turns in choosing videos, and then the adult parent's turn comes and the child overrides the choice by saying, I think you should choose this, and proceeds to select use dopamine nonsense. Then some days he says, I'm not watching, I need to detox. Then later in the day, he starts watching nonsense shorts again. When I say, I thought you wanted to detox, advice, only detox sometime. So, wow, like there's a lot there. I think actually when it comes to like break, like I have an actually very hard rule with my kids, and they're allowed to watch YouTube, but they're not allowed to watch YouTube Shorts or TikTok.
So my kids get screen time 30 minutes every Sunday, and that's it. When I work with parents and kids, what I find out helps with children is you actually explain to them what is happening. You tell them why you feel like you need to do this all the time. It's because these creators, it's kind of exciting this chemical in your brain called dopamine. And that's how they get you to spend so much time. Do you want to be kind of a smarter watcher and select what you want to watch? Or do you kind of want to be like a YouTube zombie where they just feed things into your brain? And once the children start to understand that concept, they start to think, you know what, I want to be the one who's choosing what to watch. So it helps to explain the kind of big concepts, these words like dopamine, brain, stimulation. I find it helps when we explain.
Yeah, so I think this is really an important part. Like these videos that she's watching, they're engineered, like really maliciously engineered to grab her attention like this.
Yeah.
And I think this is where, as as adults that know the impact on this, we have to take that away. And it's no different than if she would have found like some marijuana and she started smoking it. And I know we're talking about quite a young girl here. Like you would take that away if she would start like drinking coffee at 4 years old, you would take it away. It would be absolutely fine, and nobody would blame you for any of it. So I think with this one, it's actually quite easy. Just tell her, like, I'm sorry, this is the reason why, and therefore, therefore, you can't have it.
Right.
And then when she gets upset, because she will, then you sit with her and say, I understand you're upset, I get it, and that is frustrating. I understand that. Let's wait here until you're ready to talk about it, or I'll sit with you until you calm down.
Right.
And then particularly, what the next step then is when you get to that stage. At some point, you can say, okay, but what could you do that would just be as fun to you that wouldn't be a YouTube Shorts kind of thing? And all the other stuff, we thought you wanted the detox and all that stuff. That's just an gifted kid coping with behaviors that she just doesn't have control of. So that makes you sound very clever, and I know this girl particularly really is. But I also know in this situation, this is something I think you need to be quite firm on as a parent.
Right, and a lot of things I think they're saying is just trying to kind of push your buttons. Like, I think you should choose this. You can just quickly, calmly reply, I respect your opinion. I understand that is something you want to choose, but we agreed that we're going to take turns, and now I decide what I get to choose.
Yeah, but the upside is this, because I know it doesn't feel like it. This is something that is happening at home without anybody else there. So if there is a time and place to draw a line in the sand and actually like help her get through these frustrating emotions, that's it. Right, like this is like you're at home.
Yes.
You're probably not a lot of other stuff around you, and there you go. So I think with that, I think I want to call it a night today. So thank you all for coming. If you want, I will send a link so you guys can connect with both of us, which will be great. And again, wish you guys a really good evening, and speak to you guys next week.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.